Okay, so let's talk about something we all kind of take for granted: inventions. I mean, just look around you right now. Your phone, your headphones, the chair you're sitting in, they all started somewhere. But where, really? What's the secret sauce? Is it a sudden flash of genius, or is it something grittier, like years of pure hard work?
So, when I say the word inventor, what's the first thing that pops into your head? Seriously, try it. Picture that person.
Yeah, I'm guessing it's probably something like this, right? The lone genius, maybe a little disheveled, working late into the night, then bam, the light bulb clicks on. Or maybe you're thinking of that apple falling on Newton's head, or even way back to the myth of Icarus, making those wax wings just because he was so inspired to fly. It's this super romantic idea we all have, but is it the whole story?
So, let's call this the Eureka myth. It's this idea, this popular story, that great inventions are all about that one big, brilliant idea that just kind of drops out of the sky.
But there is this old saying that kind of throws a wrench into that whole idea. You've probably heard it. It says that genius is only 1% inspiration and a whopping 99% perspiration. Suddenly, that brilliant idea feels, well, a lot smaller, doesn't it? The real story, it seems, is in the sweat. So let's talk about that 99%. Let's talk about the hard part. Because here's the reality. Coming up with a cool idea? That might actually be the easiest step. The real fight, the thing that separates a sketch on a napkin from the phone in your pocket, is all the work that comes after. Just think about it. For every single invention that actually makes it into our lives, you've got to wonder, how many didn't? How many are just sitting in a dusty garage or as a forgotten file on a computer? And they're not all bad ideas, not by a long shot. They couldn't make it through that brutal process of becoming real. The odds are they're staggering.
And when I say staggering, I mean it. Check this out. According to one business magazine, only about 1 in 5,000 inventions ever actually succeeds and makes any money. 1 in 5,000. That's, what, a 0.02% chance of success? Wow, perspiration is starting to sound like a massive understatement.
So, what is all that work anyway? Well, for starters, you actually have to build the thing. You have to make a working model and test it, break it, and fix it over and over. Then comes the fun part. You have to do something called a search for prior art, which is basically a fancy legal term for making absolutely sure you didn't just reinvent something that's already out there. And then, if you're lucky, you get to navigate the nightmare of patent law, which almost always means hiring expensive lawyers. It's a grind.
Okay, to make this all a bit more real, let's dive into a few case studies. We're going to look at how this battle between the big idea and the hard work plays out in a few different scenarios.
So we've got 3 totally different stories lined up. First, a fictional character who's all about imagination, then a massive real-world project that's all about teamwork and never giving up, and finally, a famous rivalry between 2 giants of invention. All right, first up is Uncle Marcos. He's a character from a novel, and he's the poster child for the romantic inventor. This guy is driven by nothing but pure imagination. He decides he's going to build a flying machine, and the book says it ends up looking less like a plane and more like a wounded duck. So not exactly a high-tech masterpiece. But here's the thing. The story shows us that sometimes the goal isn't what you think. Marcos takes off, the crowd goes wild as he disappears into the clouds, and then, of course, he crashes. The plane is gone, and he walks home a week later. But here's the crazy part. Everyone, including him, considers it a massive success. Why? Because for them, it wasn't about building a working airplane. It was about the show, the spectacle, the pure inspiration of trying. The dream was the whole point.
Okay, now let's do a complete 180. Let's talk about the Hubble Space Telescope. This thing wasn't one person's romantic dream. It was a result of decades of work by huge teams of people. This is a story about pure collective perspiration. And what a journey it was. It gets launched into space in 1990, and it's a disaster. They called it a techno-turkey. A tiny, tiny flaw in its mean mirror made the whole multi-billion-dollar project basically useless. They could have just given up, but they didn't. 3 years later, in '93, they sent a team of astronauts up on the space shuttle for a crazy 5-day repair mission. And it worked. It was this incredible triumph of hard work over what looked like a total failure. And now we get those mind-blowing images like the pillars of creation that have literally changed how we see the universe.
All right, for our last case, let's get into one of the most legendary rivalries ever, Nikola Tesla versus Thomas Edison. I mean, these guys basically electrified our world, but their philosophies on how to invent things were polar opposites. On one side, you've got Tesla. He was the total visionary. He claimed he could invent, build, and even test his machines entirely in his head, perfecting them before he even touched a single screw. And then you've got Edison. He was all about getting his hands dirty, the ultimate pragmatist. He famously tested thousands of different materials for his light bulb filament. For him, it was all just trial and error, again and again and again. But this is where it gets really interesting. And it shows that even for a genius like Tesla, inspiration isn't always enough. See, Tesla invented and patented the basics of radio. But he was supposedly furious when another inventor, Marconi, was the one who actually did the work, the perspiration, to send the first radio message across the ocean. Tesla had the brilliant idea, but Marconi was the one who made it a reality for the world. So, after all that, what's the answer? Inspiration or perspiration? Well, as you've probably figured out by now, it's not that simple. There's this great quote from Neil deGrasse Tyson that I think sums it up perfectly. He says that for thousands of years, humans had wing envy. We dreamed of flying. That's the inspiration, right? That's our Uncle Marcos. But that dream didn't actually happen until we applied technological ingenuity. And that's the perspiration. That's the hard, gritty work of the Wright brothers, of NASA engineers, of everyone who turned the dream into a machine. So, in the end, it's not inspiration or perspiration. It's really more like a dance between the two. You need that spark, that incredible moment of imagination. But that spark is useless without the relentless, grinding work needed to fan it into a flame that can actually light up the world. And that leaves us with a really tough question to chew on, especially when you think about Tesla and Marconi. What's more important? Who do we give the credit to? The person who has the world-changing idea, or the person who does all the hard work to actually bring that idea to life for the rest of us? Something to think about.